AITA for cancel Thanksgiving dinner without telling my family first. I'm tired of doing everything myself. I 30s female, am a single mom, and I live with my 2 kids and my mom, who is also single. This has been our living situation for the past few years, and while it's generally been okay, there are definitely moments when it feels like I'm raising more than just my kids. I work full-time, take care of my children, manage all the household chores, and somehow, I also became the designated holiday chef. Every Thanksgiving for the past 2 years, I've been the one who plans, shops for, and cooks the entire Thanksgiving meal. Don't get me wrong, I love cooking, and I love Thanksgiving. I've always been the kind of person who finds peace in the kitchen, losing myself in the rhythm of chopping vegetables, stirring pots, and setting the table just right. There's something about Thanksgiving that feels so warm and nostalgic, and I wanted my kids to grow up with those same comforting feelings. I want them to remember the smell of a turkey roasting in the oven, filling the house with that savory, mouth-watering aroma that tells you a special day is coming. I want them to remember the sight of pumpkin pies cooling on the counter, the crust perfectly golden, and the way we'd sneak a spoonful of whipped cream before it was time for dessert. In my head, Thanksgiving was always supposed to be a day where we were all together, cozy and happy, with nothing but good food, laughter, and maybe a football game on in the background. But my mom, she absolutely cannot cook. Like, it's not just that she's bad at it, she's almost impressively terrible. She once tried to make boxed mac and cheese, and I still don't understand how she managed to screw it up so badly. It's like she missed a step somewhere between boiling the pasta and stirring in the cheese powder, and the result was this sticky, lumpy mess that even my kids, who normally inhale anything with cheese, wouldn't touch. So, given her lack of culinary skills, she's always been more than happy to let me take over when it comes to holiday meals. At first, I didn't mind. In fact, I kind of liked it. I thought, great, I'll do Thanksgiving, and it'll be a chance to make this a real family event. I could already picture it. A beautiful spread of food, a few family members sitting around the table, everyone chatting and laughing. So, the first year we were living together, when my mom asked if she could invite a few family members, I thought, sure, why not? It'll be a good time to get everyone together. I planned out an ambitious menu: turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, cornbread, and of course, pies. I wanted everything to be perfect. I spent days leading up to Thanksgiving prepping, shopping, and making sure I had everything just right. But, as it turned out, I wasn't exactly planning for the kind of dinner my mom had in mind. A day before Thanksgiving, she casually dropped a bomb on me. "Oh, by the way," she said, as if it were nothing, "I invited a few more people. Is that okay?" When I asked who, she rattled off a list of names, including people I barely knew, and a few I definitely did not like. She'd gone from inviting a small group of close family to this sprawling gathering of distant cousins, people who only show up to stir up drama, and some of her friends who I knew from past experiences weren't exactly the type to enjoy a quiet, family-focused meal. There was one aunt in particular who I can't stand. She always has something to say about my life choices, and I could already hear her thinly veiled insults in my head. Then there were my mom's friends who have a habit of drinking too much, getting loud, and making the whole atmosphere feel tense and awkward. I asked my mom why she hadn't told me earlier, and she just shrugged it off, like, "Oh, it's just a few more." They didn't have anywhere else to go. It was as if my concerns didn't even register to her. I knew that if I said no, it would start drama, and the last thing I wanted was to have a fight right before a holiday. So, I sucked it up and went along with it, even though I was already dreading what I knew was going to be a stressful, exhausting day. Thanksgiving that year was a disaster. There's no other way to put it. I spent the entire day running around the kitchen, making sure everything was cooked perfectly, keeping an eye on the oven timers, stirring things on the stove, setting the table, and just trying to keep everything under control. Meanwhile, my mom played hostess, lounging in the living room with a drink in her hand, acting like she was responsible for organizing the whole thing. I could hear the conversations drifting from the living room, and it was already a mess. People were complaining about the seating arrangements, some were arguing over random, petty things, and at one point, I heard my aunt make a comment to my cousin about how sad it was that I was single. The worst part was that nobody seemed to appreciate how much effort I had put in. I don't mean that I needed a standing ovation or anything, but it was like they all just took it for granted. They piled their plates with food, and then instead of enjoying the meal, they immediately started nitpicking. The stuffing is a little dry, isn't it? Why didn't you make mac and cheese? I don't like green bean casserole. Do you have anything else? I stood there, with my apron still on, hands covered in flour and butter, listening to them pick apart everything I had made. And all the while, my mom just kept saying, "Oh, don't worry, it's fine," like she didn't see how uncomfortable the whole situation was for me. By the end of the night, I was so drained I could barely stand. I ended up hiding in my room with my kids, watching movies until everyone finally left, and when I went back out to the kitchen, it looked like a tornado had gone through it. Dishes piled up everywhere, half-eaten plates of food, spilled drinks. It was a nightmare. My mom wandered in, saw the mess, and said, "Well, that was fun, wasn't it?" I just stared at her, exhausted and angry, and thought, never again. The second year, I tried to take control. After the chaos of the first year, I know I needed to set some boundaries if I was going to survive another Thanksgiving. So, I had a serious talk with my mom well in advance. I told her, point blank, I'll do Thanksgiving, but only immediate family this time. I'm serious. I laid it out clearly because I wanted to avoid a repeat of the previous disaster. I didn't want random cousins I barely knew or people who only showed up to start drama. I wanted a small, intimate dinner where I could actually enjoy the holiday with my kids, not spend it dodging passive-aggressive comments and putting out metaphorical fires. She seemed to get it. She nodded along, agreed, and even said, "Of course, I totally understand." Just as this year, I remember feeling a tiny flicker of hope, thinking maybe this year would be different. I spent weeks planning out the menu, trying to make sure I wasn't overextending myself but still making a meal that everyone would enjoy. I was genuinely looking forward to it because, despite everything, I still love cooking, and I thought this would finally be the year where I could focus on making it a great day for me and my kids. But then, 2 days before Thanksgiving, she did her usual thing. She sauntered into the kitchen while I was prepping a few dishes and, with this casual, offhand tone, said, "Oh, by the way, I invited your cousins and a few others over. Is that okay?" I swear, I could feel my blood pressure spike in that moment. I just stared at her because we had this exact conversation weeks before. I'd been so clear, so direct, and here she was, acting like it was no big deal, like she hadn't just completely undermined everything I'd been trying to set up. I asked, "What do you mean you invited them?" We agreed it would just be immediate family, and she had the nerve to look surprised, as if she genuinely couldn't understand why I was upset. "Well, they didn't have anywhere else to go," she said, in that same dismissive tone she always used when she was trying to deflect blame. I couldn't say no to them. I didn't even know how to respond. It was like she'd already made up her mind that this was going to happen, and anything I said would just be me making a fuss over nothing. She had already invited them, so if I said no, it would have been a huge deal, causing a scene, and I didn't have the energy to fight her on it. I could see how it would play out. My mom would make me the villain, telling everyone I was being difficult, and it would just lead to more drama. So I let it happen, even though I knew exactly how the night was going to go. That dinner was, unsurprisingly, chaotic. It was almost like the first year all over again, but somehow worse because I had been stupid enough to hope it might be different. I ended up spending the entire day in the kitchen, barely getting a chance to sit down and eat because I was constantly running around, making sure there was enough food, dealing with last-minute requests, and trying to keep everything from falling apart. My mom, she was in the living room, doing her usual routine, acting like she was hosting the whole event while sipping on wine and chatting with the guests she had unilaterally decided to invite. The people she invited were loud, rude, and a few even got into an argument at the table over something stupid. I think it was football, but honestly, I stopped trying to keep track. My aunt, the same one who made those sad single mom comments the year before, was back at it again, except this time she decided to critique my parenting, loudly, while my kids were within earshot. I had to bite my tongue so hard I thought I'd bleed. At one point, one of my mom's friends spilled a drink on my carpet and didn't even apologize. She just laughed it off and made some joke about how I should get used to it because kids are messy, right? As if that excused everything. I ended up hiding in my room with my kids for most of the night, watching movies and eating snacks, just trying to escape the chaos happening in the rest of the house. I couldn't even enjoy the food I had worked so hard on because I was so stressed out and exhausted. And that's what stuck with me the most, how every time I tried to give myself a moment to breathe, to maybe have a little fun with my kids, something would happen that would pull me back into the fray, and I'd have to go out there and deal with it. My mom acted like she was completely oblivious to all of it, as if she didn't notice how miserable I was, or maybe she just didn't care. Either way, it was exhausting, and I swore to myself that night that I was done. After last year, I made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to let this happen again. I was tired of my mom bulldozing over my boundaries, tired of hosting people I didn't even want in my home, and tired of feeling like I had to perform for a bunch of people who clearly didn't appreciate the effort I was putting in. I was done feeling like I had to go along with her plans just to avoid drama, especially when the price was my own peace of mind. So, when Thanksgiving started to creep up again this year, I made a decision. I wasn't going to cook. I didn't announce it. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just decided that I was done. I figured my mom could deal with it however she wanted, but I was going to set my boundaries and stick to them. A few weeks ago, she casually asked me, "So, what's on the menu for Thanksgiving this year?" Like she had no idea what my answer was going to be. I looked at her and said, "Nothing. I'm not cooking." She was visibly shocked, like I had told her something completely unexpected. And she asked me why. I told her flat out, "I'm tired of you inviting people without asking me, and I don't want to host another uncomfortable dinner where I'm stressed out and hiding in my room with the kids." I wasn't trying to be harsh, but I knew if I didn't say it clearly, she'd find a way to twist it, to make it sound like I was being unreasonable. At first, she just stared at me, her eyes wide like she genuinely couldn't believe what she was hearing. It was like I had told her I was canceling Christmas or something. She went from shocked to defensive in a heartbeat, like she was gearing up for a fight. "Wow," she said, her voice dripping with disbelief. "I can't believe you're canceling Thanksgiving just like that." She said it in that tone she always uses when she's trying to make me feel guilty, like I had just committed some huge betrayal, and it instantly set me on edge. I could already tell where this conversation was heading, but I was determined not to let her guilt trip me into changing my mind. She didn't waste any time trying to pull out the big guns, though. "You know, this is going to be our last Thanksgiving living together," she said, her voice heavy with exaggerated sadness. "I'm moving back home next year, and who knows how many more of these we'll get." She's been talking about this move for months now, about how she's finally going to retire and go back to her home country to live out her golden years. But the thing is, she's not actually moving that far away. Her home country is only about a 30-minute drive from where we live now. It's not like she's packing up and moving to another continent. She'll still be within easy driving distance. She's been acting like this is going to be some grand, tearful farewell, and I think she expected me to be just as emotional about it, but I'm not. I mean, sure, I'm happy for her that she's retiring and moving to a place she loves, but it's not like I'm never going to see her again. I wasn't buying the whole last Thanksgiving together spiel, and I think she could tell. I just looked at her, trying to keep my voice calm and steady, and said, "You're not leaving the country forever. You'll still be around, and we can have dinner whenever we want, but I'm not putting myself through another holiday where I feel uncomfortable in my own home." I thought I was being pretty reasonable. I didn't raise my voice or get aggressive, I just stated the facts. But of course, that wasn't enough for her. She immediately tried to turn it around on me, like I was the one making a big deal out of nothing. "Oh, come on," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "You're not uncomfortable, you're just overthinking it." That's when I felt my patience starting to fray. It was like she was completely ignoring everything I had said, everything I had tried to explain to her over the past 2 years. I mean, how could she not see it? Every time she invited all these people over, it turned into this chaotic, stressful mess, and I ended up spending the whole evening hiding in my room just to get a break from it. But no matter how many times I tried to tell her that, she always brushed it off, like my feelings didn't matter, or like I was just being overly sensitive. I could feel my frustration boiling over, and before I knew it, I snapped a little. Really? I said, probably a bit louder than I intended. Then why do I spend the entire evening hiding in my room with my kids until your guests finally leave? I could see the look on her face change when I said that. It was like she didn't have a quick comeback ready, and for once, she was actually listening to what I was saying. I don't think she expected me to come out and say it so bluntly, and for a moment, there was just this awkward silence between us. But of course, she wasn't going to let it go that easily. She still tried to push the guilt trip, her voice softer this time, almost pleading. But it's Thanksgiving, she said, like that was supposed to magically make everything better. It's about family, and everyone coming together. It won't be the same without your cousins and everyone else. They look forward to it, you know. I could see her trying to work on my emotions, trying to make me feel like I was ruining some big, beautiful family tradition by saying no. But that's the thing, this wasn't some wonderful, warm holiday event. It was a stressful, exhausting day that left me feeling drained and miserable, and I wasn't going to keep sacrificing my own peace of mind just to avoid a confrontation. I stood my ground. I wasn't about to let her guilt me into changing my mind, not this time. I'm sorry, Mom, but I've made my decision. I'm not cooking this year, and I'm not going to deal with the same stress all over again. I could tell she didn't like that answer, but I also think she realized that I wasn't going to budge. She gave me this look like she was hurt and disappointed, but I didn't let it affect me. I knew that if I gave in now, it would just be the same thing all over again next year, and I couldn't keep doing that to myself. After that, she got quiet for a moment, like she was trying to figure out her next move. I could see the wheels turning in her head, and for a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, she was going to let it go. But then she tried to make one last play, this soft, almost sad sigh, and said, I just thought this would be special since it's our last one. I knew what she was trying to do, and maybe a part of me did feel a little bit bad for shutting her down so hard, but I couldn't let her keep walking all over me. I've done that too many times. And I'm done feeling like I have to put her wishes above my own comfort, especially when she's the one who keeps making these situations so difficult. Honestly, at that moment, I felt pretty good about my decision. I knew it was the right thing for me and my kids. I wasn't being mean. I wasn't trying to hurt her feelings. I was just trying to take care of myself for once. But then, a few days later, I was talking to a coworker, just casually mentioning that I wasn't doing Thanksgiving this year, and they kind of gave me this surprised look. They said, wait, you just canceled it? Did you tell your mom beforehand? I explained the situation to them, and they sort of hesitated before saying, I mean, I get why you're frustrated, but maybe you should have had a conversation with her first instead of just dropping it on her like that. She probably felt blindsided. That caught me off guard a bit. I hadn't really thought of it like that because, in my head, this had been building up for a long time, and I'd tried to talk to her about it before, but she never listened. Still, the way my coworker said it made me start second-guessing myself. Maybe I should have sat her down and had a more serious, heart-to-heart conversation about why I was feeling this way. Maybe just telling her I wasn't cooking felt like a bigger deal to her than it did to me, and now I'm wondering if I was too harsh. But at the same time, I can't help but feel like it wouldn't have made a difference. Every time I've tried to talk to her before, she just brushes me off, and I end up feeling like I'm talking to a wall. So now I'm left wondering, was I the asshole for canceling Thanksgiving without warning my mom first? Update. As Thanksgiving approached, I could tell my mom still wasn't entirely convinced that I was serious about not hosting this year. Even though I had been very clear, there was this persistent, almost hopeful look in her eyes, like she thought I might change my mind at the last minute. Every few days, she would casually bring it up, asking me things like, are you sure you don't want to at least make a small turkey? Or what if we just did a potluck, so it's not too much work for you, each time? I repeated the same thing. I'm not hosting this year, and I'm not cooking. I've already said my piece. I think she took my responses as me being stubborn or dramatic, rather than genuinely setting a boundary, because she kept trying to chip away at it. About a week before Thanksgiving, she asked again, almost like she was testing the waters to see if I had softened up. She walked into the kitchen, where I was making lunch for the kids, and said, so, are you really not going to do anything for Thanksgiving? It was almost like she was daring me to back down, but I held firm. No, I'm not, I said. not even looking up from what I was doing. I already told you why. She didn't say anything after that, just kind of sighed and wandered off, but I could tell she wasn't happy. I knew she was disappointed, maybe even embarrassed, because she loves to play the hostess. She likes the feeling of having people around, of being the center of attention, and I was essentially taking that away from her, but I was past caring at this point. I had spent the last 2 years feeling miserable and stressed out, trying to make these holidays work, and I just couldn't do it again. I thought that was the end of it, I really did. But, of course, I should have known better. Thanksgiving morning, I was up early, not to cook, but just to get the kids settled. I had planned a quiet day for us, some movies, maybe a little arts and crafts, and just relaxing without all the usual chaos. Around mid-morning, I heard a car pull up outside, and I figured it was one of our neighbors. But then I heard more cars, and it wasn't long before the doorbell rang. My mom practically sprinted to the door, and when she opened it, there stood one of my cousins, grinning and holding a huge dish of sweet potatoes. "Happy Thanksgiving," he shouted, and I could see a few more people getting out of their cars behind him, all carrying trays and pots and bags of groceries. I was completely blindsided. I hadn't planned on dealing with guests, let alone a full house. I could feel the frustration rising, but I tried to keep it together. Maybe they were just dropping off food or something. But no, one by one, people started filing in, greeting my mom like this was all perfectly normal, and setting up their dishes on the kitchen counter. It was like a scene from a movie, with people bustling around, laughing, and unpacking food as if they were preparing for a big family dinner. And the whole time, my mom was just smiling, welcoming everyone, and acting like this was exactly how she had planned it. I felt my stomach drop. I took a deep breath, tried to stay calm, and pulled my mom aside into the hallway where no one could hear us. I asked her what was going on, and she just gave me this innocent, almost smug smile and said, "They're here for Thanksgiving dinner. I told them to bring food so you wouldn't have to cook." I was stunned. I reminded her that I had specifically told her I wasn't hosting this year, that I didn't want to deal with the stress, and she just shrugged it off. "But they brought everything," she said, like that was supposed to make it all better. "You don't have to do anything." I couldn't believe it. I had been so clear, and she had gone behind my back, invited all these people, and turned my home into the very situation I was trying to avoid. It wasn't about the cooking, it was about having my boundaries respected, and once again, she had completely ignored them. I felt like my head was going to explode, but at that point, what could I do? The guests were already here, they had brought all their food, and there was no way I could turn them away without causing a massive scene. So, I did the only thing I could think of. I excused myself, took my kids, and went to my room. I spent the entire day in there, just like I had the last 2 years. I could hear everything happening outside: loud conversations, laughter, clinking glasses, and the occasional raised voice when someone inevitably got into an argument. The kids and I had our own little Thanksgiving in my room. We watched movies, ate snacks, and I tried to pretend like there wasn't a whole unauthorized dinner party going on in my living room. But it was hard to relax when I knew exactly what my mom was doing out there, playing hostess, soaking up all the attention, and acting like everything was fine. Eventually, it started to wind down. I could hear people saying their goodbyes, thanking my mom for hosting. I almost laughed out loud at that, and gathering up their coats. But when I finally came out of my room, I was greeted by a sight that made my heart sink: a mountain of dirty dishes piled high in the sink, pots and pans covered in food scraps, and empty containers scattered across the kitchen. It was like a bomb had gone off, and it was clear that no one had even thought about cleaning up. I guess they all figured that since they brought the food, I'd be the one to handle the aftermath. But I was done. Absolutely done. I walked out into the living room, where a few of the guests were still hanging around, chatting with my mom. I didn't raise my voice or get angry. I just calmly told them, "Since you all brought your own food and had your own Thanksgiving, I expect you to clean up your own mess. And please take your dishes with you when you go." There was a moment of awkward silence, like they couldn't believe what they were hearing. A few of them even laughed, thinking I was joking. But I just stood there, arms crossed, waiting. When they realized I was serious, they started looking uncomfortable, but I didn't care. One by one, they shuffled back into the kitchen and started washing dishes, drying them, and packing up their containers. It took a while, and there was a lot of awkward, forced small talk, but eventually, everything was cleaned up, and they left. My mom didn't say much during all this, but I could tell she wasn't happy. After everyone was gone, she finally turned to me, with that exasperated look she gets when she thinks I'm being unreasonable, and said, "You didn't have to make them clean up, you overreacted." I was floored. After everything, she still couldn't see the problem. I told her, as calmly as I could, that I had been clear from the beginning I wasn't hosting this year. I didn't want the stress, and I didn't want to deal with a house full of people. She ignored all of that, went behind my back, and essentially forced a party into my home. So, no, I wasn't going to play nice and clean up after her guests. If she wanted to be the hostess, she could take on the responsibilities that came with it. But she just rolled her eyes and muttered something under her breath about me being dramatic, like I was the one making a scene. And that's when I realized nothing I said was going to make a difference. She was never going to see my side of it, and she was always going to find a way to twist things so that I looked like the bad guy. I walked away from that conversation feeling exhausted and drained, but also strangely relieved. I knew I had done the right thing by standing up for myself, even if it meant clashing with her. It was messy, and it was uncomfortable, but at least I didn't let her walk all over me this time.